So good afternoon and welcome to all. I, Dr. Bhavna Zunagade, Associate Professor from the Department of Anatomy, MGM Medical College, Navi Mumbai, on behalf of MGM Institute of Health Sciences, heartily welcome one and all, our dignitaries, guests, all the faculty members, administrative staff, students, and participants from various institutes. Today we are all here for this webinar on systematic approach to CBME and NAC implementation. We welcome our expert speakers, Director Mr. Ajay Bhagwat and Vice President Mr. M.V. Kalidas from INPOTS, India. MGM IHS is institute striving for excellence in all aspects of healthcare education and research. The institute organizes various programs, workshops, conferences. Today, we have opportunity to learn recent technological solutions in areas of academic quality assurance, CBME, and NAC implementation approaches. Before we start with our session, I would like to request all the participants to please keep yourselves muted. Please, everyone. During the sessions, whatever queries you have, you can post them in the chat box. So at the outset, I request Dr. R.S. Inamdar sir, Chairman, CBME Committee, to give outline of CBME. Sir, over to you.
We at MGMIHS are very happy to have a very good response from all of you. We have a webinar on the systematic approach to CBME and to NAC. CBME, that is a competency-based medical education, is rolled out already in 2019 in over 500 medical colleges throughout India. This is our institute, MGM Institute of Health Sciences, located in Navi Mumbai, with units in Navi Mumbai and Aurangabad, with various health sciences streams, MBBS, physiotherapy, nursing, biomedical, BPO, and giving an education, research, and service in different areas. Competency-based medical education is about the curriculum that is implemented for MBBS. It is a paradigm shift. It is a sea change. We, when we become doctors in years 30, 40 years before, we had of course undergone a very good curriculum, and that is called as a traditional curriculum. It was there in 1997. These graduate medical regulations were there, and after a period of 22 years, in 2019, a total shift has occurred. So we are looking at what is the total shift and how the new doctors that we are going to train would have the competencies. So when we look at what is there in the treasure, what is inside the CBME, I'm always reminded of Alibaba Chi Guha, Alibaba's Guha, Alibaba's cave. So as you enter into that great story of Alibaba's cave, you find lot of wealth there. I mean, there is a gold, there are diamonds, there are ornaments and whatnot. You are looking at here, and then your attention is
we have studied about
turned to others.
short review of body fluid water and the various compartments in which the body
Please-
fluid is present.
Please
Similarly, we have studied about the various electrolytes which are moving across the cell membrane. So the primary electrolyte in the extracellular fluid
There is somebody
compartment, that
lecturing.
is the fluid which is present
Okay.
outside the cell, is called as the extracellular fluid compartment, and in that the
Hello,
main
please
solute,
mute.
or main electrolyte, it is mainly the sodium ion. Whereas inside it is mainly the potassium ion. So the
Ah,
potassium concentration
Sangeeta Fatale, madam.
inside is more. So after
Fatale, madam,
short
please
video,
mute.
we have started the lecture on the transport across the cell membrane.
Fatale, madam, से
And the
lecture चालू है.
transport across the cell membrane, we have broadly classified the cell membrane. That is transport in two main groups, that is active transport and the passive transport. And in
Sangeeta
passive
Fatale,
transport,
Fatale.
we have classified it into diffusion and kind of diffusion we have
Explain any
And
the definition
Susan
of diffusion.
Jacob, दोघांची lecture चालू आहे.
5-6 areas.
That diffusion it is
Any
defined mainly
vocational
as
guidance, फिर पर्सनल गाइडेंस ऐसे सब है ना, तो एक एरिया को एम्फसाइज करके डाल
Susan Jacob
explain
lecture
any
is
two
on
guidance है ना.
mute. Hello, ha. So now we are getting CBME voices from everywhere. The people are teaching and is an online learning platforms that are interfering. Anyway, back to this Alibaba's Guha. So we have all the treasures. So similarly, in CBME, you have lot of components. Let's look at them. So the ultimate aim of this CBME is to produce a doctor that is called as Indian Medical Graduate, IMG. Now this young boy, say 24, and a girl, they are becoming MBBS, they are the IMG, Indian Medical Graduate. Now what is this they are possessing? What we have taught them is the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, values, and responsiveness. Look here, attitude, values, responsiveness have come in great way for the first time in the curriculum. And what is the aim? That he or she may function appropriately and very effectively as a physician of the first contact of the community and being globally relevant. What are the two things? One, physician of the first contact of community. So they will work in our cities, towns, villages, serve the community, but globally relevant. If they want to go abroad, they go to US, UK, Saudi, anywhere, they will stand on their feet very well with the competencies that we have given. So these are the two objectives in this. Now there are 5 roles of an Indian medical graduate. This kind of a outcome-based education or competency-based education has been there in the West for many years. It has been there in US as ACGME. It has there been in Canada. So Canadian outcomes are there in UK, British doctors in Scotland, Scottish doctors. So more or less the roles are there. So for MCI NMC has defined the roles. What this MBBS graduate is going to do after he gets into the society, after his graduation, he has 5 roles. These roles are: 1, he will be, first and foremost, he will be clinician. I mean, perfect doctor, able to diagnose, treat, manage. Second role that he has, or quality that he has, is a communicator. He should be able to communicate very effectively with the patients, with the colleagues, with the relatives. So communicator. And to develop these qualities, we have a program in the CBME. Then he will be a thorough professional. He will be a leader of the team, but not always the boss. He will also be a member of the team. He is working with the nursing staff, with the biomedical technicians, with the physiotherapist. So he is a member of the team and a leader. This is another role. And he is a lifelong learner. Like what happens is, whenever you are learning, you feel ये हो गया ना, आप किताबों को हाथ लगाने का नहीं. Like some engineers say, बस हो गया पढ़ाई. लेकिन डॉक्टर के लिए ऐसा नहीं है. He is a lifelong learner. Not that he has to, 8-10 hours to read, but he has to keep abreast. Just like now COVID has been there, all these learnings we have from March to now, January, till vaccine, is a new learning to us. So doctor has to be a lifelong learner. And we are teaching these skills in our curriculum by self-directed learning. Now we are entering into this Alibaba's Guha. Like look at the components, beautiful ones. At the center is the competency. There is a concept of competency, right? So all the subjects, all the phases have been dissected, divided into competency. Then there is alignment and integration. That is, your different subjects like anatomy, physiology, medicine, radiology. I mean, whatever you are learning is about the patient, about the human body, and it has to be aligned, integrated. It is not like a bogie of a railway that you have passed first MBBS, you leave the bogie and go to next, or a rocket shuttle. So it has to be aligned integration, and there are various beautiful ways of aligning integration. Foundation course, as he enters, he is coming from a different world into a totally different scenario. So there is a transition for which a foundation course is there. There is an early clinical exposure. There is a skill lab training. There are electives for the first time after third first. And of course, the boss of boss is assessment. So all these elements are there. Last year, when we had our first batch, we welcomed them, and there was a white coat ceremony, induction ceremony. You are entering into a medical profession, and you take a oath, and they get the feel of it. That has been incorporated now. There is a timetable which is laid down very scrupulously. First MBBS of 1 month foundation course, though due to COVID, we had some changes to be made for this batch and after this batch. So the foundation course now has been merged in first 4-5 months for this batch which is coming now. Then there is an exam schedule. There are subjects in various phases. There are elective slot after third first, and there is internship. There is a little shift of subjects of FMT and community medicine. So there is a let down timetable. In the CBME, you have a lot of medical education technology. The faculty has to learn and implement number of things. So there is a taxonomy of learning which medical education units are teaching with the basic course, revised basic course. So what is the cognitive domain, what is the psychomotor domain, and what are the levels in the domain, and how do we teach the students? Then what are the various competencies, how to formulate the objectives, different teaching learning methods. Now we are shifting from the didactic to interactive teaching, small group teaching, online learning, then alignment integration, ethics ATCOM modules. Assessment has undergone a lot of changes, and a timetable has to be framed. MCI NMC has given the booklets which are available on the websites as a competency-based undergraduate curriculum, volume 1, 2, 3, and the subsequent supplementary modules, about 8 in number, have come in. So people are asking, what is this competency? What are the objectives? What are the outcomes? So competency is an observable ability of a learner that includes multiple components, including knowledge, skills, attitudes, and communication. So it is an amalgamation. It encompasses many things. That is called as a competency. So it has knowledge, skills, attitudes, communication. Maybe there are 2 or 3 components in one competency. Maybe there is one. And there is a competency table. The faculty has to, already knows about this table where you have a competency number. Then you have the competency which is listed up very wordily. Then the domain, that is whether this is falling into a knowledge, skill, attitude, communication. And there is a Miller's pyramid, Miller's scale. That is when you are teaching and when you are assessing, whether it is falling in the knows how, shows how, or performs level. There are certain skills which are at the performs level that MBBS graduate should be able to do it. They are certifiable skills. They are being taught in the skill laboratory and other places. They are being evaluated very meticulously and certified. This has come for the first time. Then whether it is to be taught in the lectures, in the group discussions, how it is to be assessed, and integration, right? So there is a component of one subject. You need to know pharmacology, you need to know some other subject, and the integration is done in the vertical and horizontal manner. We have a student doctor method, that is in the second MBBS onwards, the students should be assigned one patient. They will follow from the OPD into the IPD, they will interact with the family, they will look at the sheets. They are not going to treat. They will be under supervision, but they get a hang of how the patient is progressing, how is managed. So that is a student doctor method of learning which has come for the first time. Various skills, many of them are to be practiced on the mannequins in the skill lab. So the patient will not be asked to undergo a number of examinations by the students. So there is a skill lab which is there. To begin with, there is a foundation course giving the overview and a connection. Then there are other units, like some students need a little push in the language, local language, Marathi, sometimes some for Hindi language, for communication with the students. Some students have coming from a vernacular of their regional language, so English language and others are there. There is an early clinical exposure. That is right in the first MBBS, the students are taken to the hospital, and some units are being taken along with the cases, paper cases, or X-rays and others. When we learn, in the context in which we learn is very important. So we take the students to different context experiences, not only in the tertiary care hospital, but also in the PHCs, district hospitals, communities. There is integration. Another element that has been properly inducted into the curriculum is self-directed learning. अपने आप सीखो, और सीखने का जो तरीका है वो अपनाओ. I mean, how long the teacher is going to teach you? After MBBS or even during MBBS, you learn the tricks and trades of how you yourself set the goals, how you get the resources, how you get facilitated from the teachers, and slowly ये गुरु का जो वारसा है वो शिष्य के पास जाता है. So he takes over. So SDL is a new component which has come. We know assessment drives learning. Students will ask कि क्या आ रहा है एग्जाम में, क्या पढ़ना है. They are all exam oriented. So you plan the exam in such a way that will drive the learning. In fact, learning is going to drive the assessment. Anil, battery low, battery. Right? So now evaluation, we not only evaluate the subject, we evaluate the domains of learning, cognitive, affective, psychomotor. And we have a great kit of the tools. For theory, we have LAQs, SAQs, MCQs. For practicals, there are different ways, OSCE, OSCE. There is a structured Viva, and number of tools are there, 360 degrees assessment and others. The assessment is not only to know how much he has learned and what grades he gets, but it is for him to help in learning. So there is a concept of assessment for learning, that is a formative assessment, and where we are shaping, like a pottery is being shaped, we are shaping that student, we are giving a feedback. So slowly he is being formed. So formative assessment. And at the end, that is at the university examination of phases, there is summative assessment. So, I mean, the doctors in our past years, they used to ask, अरे भाई ये CBME क्या है? What is this CBME, CBME? And the young doctors will tell them, uncle, hey, That is what the CBME is all about. So what we are looking at is CBME is a new paradigm. It is a paradigm shift. It has different components. And we are looking at the student, and we are sort of looking how he is progressing. And therefore, there are a lot of things which are to be noted, recorded, and a feedback is to be given. So it requires a lot of system and the preparation on the part of a faculty. So with this is a brief overview of CBME. And now I hand over to Mr. Kalidas, who will tell us information about the technological platforms which are there.
Inamdar sir, thank you for giving the overview of CBME. And now to deliberate the various aspects and nuances of the systematic approach of the presses, we have with us today EdTech expert, Mr. M.V. Kalidas, Vice President in POTS India. Sir has vast experience of IT products and services in organizations like Wipro, HCL, and Microsoft. He has helped many higher educational institutes and universities to implement outcome-based education. He will be speaking on CBME implementations. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Inamdar and Dr. Bhavna, for giving us the opportunity to present how technology can help in implementing competency-based medical education. So I will approximately take about half an hour to 45 minutes for my presentation. I will, without much going into much detail, I would like to plunge into my presentation. I also understand that there are people besides medical colleges who are also participants out here from the other health sciences like dental, nursing, and allied health. So please, even though directly your, unlike NMC, CBME may not have been implemented in dental nursing, but I do believe it is very relevant to your programs also, because now it is a well established fact that marks, which are the typical academic marks, do not directly measure the competencies and skills of any student. So this would also be relevant to non-medical participants in this particular webinar which is there. So wherever I am using the term medical and CBME, it can be substituted for dental, nursing, and other competencies are also there. So before we really, as a philosophy of our company, what we do is that before we design any kind of a technology and implement any software solutions, we all take a strong feedback from all the stakeholders. So in the last 1.5 to 2 years since CBME was announced by the erstwhile Medical Council of India, we have been taking feedbacks from various medical colleges. I just want to share some of those feedbacks. One of the feedbacks which has come out very strongly is that it is a well-known fact now, well established, that any regulatory body, and especially if you have read the new education policy, there is a very, very strong emphasis on measurements of competencies. And for example, NAC is talking about measuring course outcomes and program outcomes. So even the regulatory bodies are now insisting that you measure course outcomes and competencies. Second, because of this, what happens is that there is a lot of documentation overload on the institutes. Why is that? Because our regulatory bodies, as you are aware, work on the fundamental philosophy saying that trust but verify. So if you say I am, implementing CBME, they probably trust you, but they will ask for verification of that, and that can only be done through some kind of a documentation which is there. So that's the second challenge which a lot of medical colleges have faced, of the documentation being increased because of competency CBME kind of an implementation which is there. The third is that, like I mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation, it is now well established, not just in medical. You talk to any programs, whether it is engineering, whether it is management, or arts and architecture, the confidence level on marks has or probably become an all-time low. Very few people believe that if you have, good marks, that means you are a good person who has acquired skills which are there. So there is a stronger requirement, whether you are going abroad for, for example, if you look at USMLE requirements which are there, or if you are applying for a job, or you're doing a post graduation, the requirement of something called student portfolio, which goes beyond marks and measurement of competencies, is also become almost parallel to having a transcript of your marks which is there. Fourth is, overall there is a strong focus on how performance indicators, competencies and all are measured. EPAs are of course entrustable professional activities. If you look at the US, like how we have an Indian medical graduates, which Dr. Inamdar just talked about, US talks about something called EPAs, saying that unless I'm confident that I can entrust you with performing these activities, you do not become an MBBS doctors. So there is a lot of focus saying that I have to measure and I should have, evidences to show that I can trust you with these. I should have evidences which are data driven evidences to show that you have reached this particular level of competencies which are there. So the last challenge is obviously we believe that a lot of softwares and technologies which are available in the market are not designed from a grounds up to measure competencies or outcome. They have more or less followed the old academic structure of grades and mark sheets and mark generation, and assessments are also based on marks rather than a software which is designed grounds up from a competency. So this is like almost, I build a building which right from the beginning, I know from the foundation that it is going to be a 4-storied building. The architecture of that building will be very different compared to an bungalow which gets converted into a 4-storied building. So that kind of a thing, very few IT systems and technologies are designed keeping competencies or outcomes. As our company, which my colleague Ajay Bhagwat and I represent, always has been our philosophy to look at technology in improving academic quality. So we always have built the architecture keeping competencies and outcomes as the foundations which are there. So these are some of the 5 top challenges which we find talking to medical colleges in terms of competencies. So we have more or less designed a software to meet these challenges. So I will, next few slides will just talk in general about technology. I don't want to use this opportunity to say my product is great or something of that sort, but in generally how technology can help in implementation of CBME and what has been our company's experiences when we have implemented with various colleges which are there. So the first thing I would like to explain to you that the technology solution for CBME is roughly put into 4 rough modules which are there. One is a typical learning management system. This is a online teaching learning tool, which I'm sure every one of you all are familiar with. Because of the pandemic situation, you are using various kinds of online tools, whether it is a Google Classroom or a Zoom or a, Microsoft Team. These are a typical learning management system tools which are there. What I would like to show as a part of technology is that how those tools have been adapted for a competency-based medical education. So I will share a couple of slides in explaining that part. The second part, like I mentioned to you in the earlier slide of the challenges faced on lot of documentation, I will again explain to you how technology can be used to generate a lot of reports, which are almost automatically generated with no additional efforts from faculty or administrators, which will take care of, say, NAC requirement, which will take care of what the MCI GMER document talks about, and also in general, overall governance perspective. So if there are senior stakeholders in your health university and medical institutes who would like to know overall whether the governance aspect has been met, we have a lot of technological analytical reports which will help you. I will share that part of it. As far as NAC is concerned, of course, my colleague Ajay Bhagwat will go more deeper into it. I'm just going through some one or two reports which are essential for NAC. The third thing which we have is touching the assessment part. As you are aware, in the previous slide, Dr. Inamdar talked about how assessment has become a very, very important part of learning, because that's the only evidence to check whether whether the student has really understood what has been taught to him. So as you are again aware, the GMER document gives a lot of guidelines, specific guidelines on how the assessment has to be planned out, whether it is a formative assessment or a summative assessment. There are pretty strict rules. So how does technology help you in implementing those kind of assessments? How are those question paper generated? How is the blueprint? Can I automate it? So I will also share with you how technology has helped some institute automate that part of the piece of the puzzle of CBME, which is there. Lastly, we also have, I will show you a very nice faculty mobile app, which basically talks about skill certification and student logbooks. How you can maintain a student logbooks, how can you give a feedback to the student, how can a teacher assess the competencies as defined by CBME. In the CBME document, there are various Miller scales of know how, show how. So how are you going to assess show how, and how can a mobile technology help you in do skill certifications and measure show how competencies? I will again share with you with a few slides which are there. So next half an hour or so, I will go deeper into all these four modules. And these are all four integrated, or you can pick and choose and say, I would like to take this up first and do it in a phased manner. That's also technology allows you to do that, which is there. So going slightly deeper into learning management system, the fundamentals of any learning management system are more or less the same. You can have an online teaching, online digital content, and you can do online assessment. In fact, our company's LMS also follows exactly. There is a module 8 released by NMC recently on how the guidelines of online teaching and learning should be done as per the NMC. Our system fundamentally follows that. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. But this is how a typical learning management system will look like. You can do a complete planning of your lessons, which are there. Which lesson would be like to be taught at what point of time, in what is your, it's more or less like a your courseware planning, which is there. What we have also done a little deeper from our technology perspective is that we have linked these things to competencies. So you can say this particular topic will be taught because this topic contains these competencies. You can tag those competencies in my learning management system. Not only that, this is a typical a screenshot showing you how you can do what is called as a flipped classroom. That essentially means that you can basically tell the student that before you come to the classroom to listen to my lecture, this is a small YouTube video. Please go through that YouTube video and come to the class, so that you are primed and you are already fine-tuned to the kind of concepts which are going to be reinforced, which are there. These are very important tools of how technology can actually increase the efficiency of the teaching, because everything need not be taught on a face-to-face classroom kind of settings which are there. And of course, during the pandemic situation, which is still continues, you can do online. So you can have your Zoom or something else integrated into our LMS and conduct an online classroom, and that video recording can be put into our system, which is there. So as you can see at the bottom, there is a discussion forum also. The student can actually ask questions based on the digital content which you have uploaded. So it need not be video. It can be a PowerPoint. It can be a Wikipedia. It can be any link which you are showing, which essentially makes, like I told you, the efficiency of your teaching learning process far better. Now, especially in the current scenario, as you are aware, the pandemic is completely disrupted the academic calendar, and your whole thing is condensed. What you need to do perhaps in 18 months, you have to do it in probably 10, 12 months. these kind of technology play a very important role, where you can already put some digital content so that the students can basically learn this at their home or in their hostels, and you did not give those kind of lecture without compromising on the pedagogy of teaching which is there. So apart from this, I would like to explain to you how technology can be adapted towards integration. Again, going back to Dr. Inamdar's slide, he talked about concepts of horizontal and vertical integration, which is nothing but trying to say that you should not be teaching on a pure, like in silos. If a physiology teacher should not be teaching CBME document now says that you can either pick up an organ or you can pick up a particular disease and teach based on that particular, which would essentially mean that if I'm a physiology teacher, I might have to bring certain topics from some other subject and teach, and maybe even that teacher might come into my classroom and teach. So if you are doing something like this, my technology supports that. So this is a classical example of how a pediatric teacher who has already created some digital content which for pediatric lessons can be shared with biochemistry, and then your whole thing will look like this. So when the student logs in, he knows sequentially that after he finishes certain topics in biochemistry, certain competencies, as you can see, the next logical thing he needs to learn is from pediatrics to form a part of the vertical integration. Of course, the difference between horizontal and vertical, you obviously are familiar. Within the same phase, it is horizontal, and across phases, it is vertical. So the our learning management online tool has these provisions by which you can adapt for CBME very easily. So this is some of the example. There's very typically, multiple choice questions. Again, any learning management system will have the provision of auto grading. So moment you do a multiple choice question assessments in any LMS, automatically the grading is done. But the beauty of this technology is that we not only give the auto grading, but also things like, why is this answer wrong? So the student, when he or she logs in, will come to know that I chose B instead of A. Immediately the software will say that, and also give an explanation as to why that thing was marked wrong. This is the correct answer. This is the reason why it is the correct answer. And you can also link it to the topic, saying this particular topic which was taught to you some time back was the correct answer. If you had maybe in some way hint to the student, if you had paid attention at that point of time in the topic, you would have got this answer right. So you can get all this can be embedded into our software, including we give a lot of good analytics. So this is a beautiful analytical tool called hotspot analysis, where the faculty can immediately come to know after teaching this and conducting a small MCQ test whether these concepts have been understood by the students or not. So this hotspot analysis, what it does is it immediately tells you that which is the question in this MCQ which was least answered correctly by the students. So if it comes to know that your question number 1 and question number 10 was the least answered, most of the students got it wrong, and you can link that particular thing, as you can see in this slide, it is linked to a particular competency. So you would immediately come to know that this competency is not being understood by this class which I just taught them. You probably might have to do a remedial class. So this is again a very important technology tool which is helping faculty to do small formative assistance as soon as a small 45 minutes lecture gets over. This MCQ is conducted, because again we have a very beautiful mobile app for students which can be carried to the classroom, and that MCQ can be conducted immediately in the classroom, so that you get a immediate like a dip test analysis of whether the concept is not understood, and if it is not understood you can repeat it as a remedial straight away. So this is how technology can help in terms of better implementation of CBME as far as the LMS is concerned. My next part of my thing. As Dr. Bhavna mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions, do post it in the question box. We will take questions after both the sessions get over. Whatever we can answer, we will definitely answer. So my next part of my presentation is on the skill certification. As mentioned earlier, in MBBS and in dental and nursing, your psychomotor skill assessment is very, very important. Unlike engineering, because ultimately engineer could be designing an automobile or designing a building or a bridge. His skills can be assessed based on a theoretical paper which he can answer. However, whether it is a dentist or a nurse or a doctor, unless you observe how the student is, for example, taking a pulse, or how the student is going to conduct a small surgery, you cannot do that assessment. So therefore, skill certification and the skill assessment becomes a very, very important part of your program assessment which is there. So what technology has done is that a mobile app has been developed especially for faculty, which can keep that mobile app in front of them and observe the students. It cannot be done in a typically skill assessment is obviously done in a bedside kind of an environment or a skill lab in front of a mannequin. So if the teacher wants to really give comments and do certification, he or she requires an extremely small device in their hand to do that assessment. So therefore, the mobile app has been developed. How it looks like is that moment the faculty logs in to the mobile app, the software will recognize that this particular teacher is from physiology, or is from community health or anatomy. And moment it recognizes that, all the competencies which are there in the drop box are only those competencies relevant to that particular subject. And also they are following the CBME specifications of show, how, or P. SH or P competencies will be available for you in that choose competency box, which I'm showing you in this particular PowerPoint, which is there. Then moment you choose that, the assessment method also as per CBME will be available to you. So you want to do a Viva or you want to do an OSCE, you can choose that assessment method in the mobile app itself. And then immediately after that, you can choose your student. Student is again automatically populated in the backend, and you can search on the roll number or on the first name or last name and choose the particular student whom you're going to assess. You have other things like whether it is a summative assessment or a formative assessment, that context can be also chosen from this particular drop box. And then you can say, I want to evaluate. I will just press this button at the bottom, which says in red, evaluate. And moment it evaluate this competency, you can press with a simple button whether the student, whatever you observed, is below expectation, meets expectation, or exceeds the expectation. So you are again, the terminology which is used and implemented in this mobile app is exactly as per the CBME and GMR specifications. You are supposed to say below expectation, meets expectation. So you can just simply press your hand in any of these buttons to say that this student which I observed for this competency is meeting the expectations which are there. In case you prefer to have your own checklist over and above BME specifications, you can incorporate that also in our software, and it will be visible to you in your mobile app. And once you do that, you can continue to do it for another student, or you can say, same student, I want to evaluate another competency. All those options are available for you to do on the mobile app. And then you can get a comprehensive competency profile of the student. So these, rectangular boxes on the left are exactly your CBME competencies. It shows like, IMG 2.2.2. So this is internal messages as an example. Those square boxes are the number of times you have tried, because again, the CBME document says that you should definitely make sure that the student has done this competency 3 times, 4 times before you certify. So the number of times you have evaluated are those square boxes. The color signifies whether it is below expectation, meets expectation, or exceeds. So overall student profile will be visible to the faculty at a glance. So this is again how skill certification is, technology can help in terms of skill certification, which is there. We are also developing a comprehensive skill competency badges for students. This is not completely ready with us, but what we are trying to say is that instead of showing a mark sheet, which is also important, can the student create a competency profile by the time he passes out his MBBS, and have a like a digital badge. And this badge, if you click here, it will tell you exactly what was the checklist which was used to give these kind of a competency. How many times did he was certified? Was he below expectation, meets expectation? So the entire from this metadata you can drill down into to find out how exactly was he certified for this competency. Potentially we are also thinking of making this into like a blockchain technology, and say that it can therefore be published in a like a LinkedIn kind of a profile of the student, saying that I have got these competencies with me. And it can also help the student decide his post graduation or career plans if he himself gets a data driven input from the technology saying that I am good at these competencies which are there. So this is how a student competency profile is. Can also, this is not fully ready from us, but we have the capability to do this in terms of this student competency badges which is there. This is a very interesting thing from a self-directed learning. Again, SDL is a very important aspect of CBME documentation. So my software is not just meant for the institute and faculty. Students themselves can log into my software, look at their own data of competency. So for example, in this example which I've shown you, this competency right on the top seems to be the weak point of this student. So the student can say, I am not doing very well in this competencies, and there's a checkbox out here. He can check this box, and then my software can also prompt him that if you are weak in this competency, these are the topics which are linked to these competencies. You can do the revision. And once you do the revision, my software can also automatically create one assessment which is only linked to this competency. Okay. And he can basically, he or she, the student, can give the answers to that assessment and check whether this competency has improved or not. So this again is a very good example of how technology can be used for self-directed learning. All this which I just told you can be done without any intervention from the teacher. The student can log in, find out his weakness, understand which topics are linked to that competency, revise those, generate a question paper himself or herself, answer that. If it is an MCQ, it will automatically be graded and it will show to him whether he is improved or not. So this entire process can be done by the student without the teacher prompting him or her saying you're weak. Of course, the student has to be motivated himself or herself to do all that. Technology, unfortunately, cannot solve a motivation problem. But once he or she has the motivation, the tools are available, which are there. So regarding the faculty mobile app, which I told you from a skill certificate perspective, it is available both for iPhone as well as an Android phone. In case we are very open, if faculty wants to try it out for their own subjects which are there. In case you want to do that, just send a mail to us at info@inpod.com. We would love to set it up for you, and you can use it as a free trial and check out how it improves your skill certification which is there. Now I'm going into the third part, which is I'll go a little fast here because these are all typically regulatory reports and governance reports which get generated from our software, and how it can help in your submitting it to your NMC or to NAC, which is there. First, this is an example that in my software you can define the program outcomes for MBBS. As you are aware, I do not know how many of the existing colleges who are participating in the webinar are looking for NAC. Whoever are looking for NAC, this will be very familiar to you because NAC asks for program outcomes as an evidence that you are measuring program outcomes and course outcomes. Those of you who are not looking at NAC must look at NAC, because the new education policy is very, very clearly said that in case if you are not accredited, you can't, continue. I mean, it is very explicit. So measurement of program outcomes and course outcomes over and above competencies is very important. So my software, you can define program outcomes. You can define course outcomes exactly as per CBME. You can define your Miller scale, your your KS, all that can be defined in my software. Your competencies, this is again, competencies, as I just mentioned to you, you can have know-how, whether it is like a domain, knowledge domain. This is exactly from a screenshot of cardiovascular physiology, which comes as a topic under physiology. These are the competencies defined in my software. And you can then, the software and the technology allows you to do a mapping of course outcome to program outcomes, competencies to course outcomes. So a competency is linked to a course outcome is linked to a program outcomes. Your course outcomes and program outcomes are also available in the CBME document, though they have not explicitly, GMER or the CBME document doesn't talk of these as course outcomes. Many institutes whom I'm talking to have very clearly understood that these are course outcomes and these are program outcomes. So your competencies, course outcomes and program outcomes are available in the CBME document. Those can be put into the technology, and the technology can allow you to map the competencies to course outcomes, the course outcomes to program outcome. Now, how does that benefit the institution? The benefit is like this. This is again an example of not only doing a competency, but your block structure can also be defined in my software. How it helps is that when you do any kind of assessment, whether it is a theory or a viva, whether it is a formative or a summative assessment, if in my software I have the ability to link the questions to competencies, okay, so you just need to say, I have conducted one small formative assessment of 10 questions. In that, question number 1 is linked to competency this, okay, that's all you need to do. And once you do that, and then once you upload the marks of the students in an Excel sheet, automatically the competency report like this will come out. Okay, it will identify very clearly which competencies your batch is doing well, which competencies are not doing well. You will get that. Automatically course outcome report is generated. Why? Because somewhere you already linked the competency to course outcomes, and because you have linked the question to competencies and uploaded the mark, competency report gets generated automatically, course outcome report gets generated automatically, and program outcome reports generate automatically. So as you are aware, competency is required by CBME, your COPO is required by NAC. So this itself is a huge value to colleges, where they don't have to spend lot of time in getting the course outcome and program outcome reports. Typically, before technology has been implemented in these colleges, the course outcome, program outcome, there is an IQAC department which takes care of this. CBME is more from the HOD department. Now, all this can be integrated into one simple technology tool, and these kind of reports can be generated, which is there. This is not necessarily from a governance, I mean, it's not necessarily from a regulatory perspective, but very interesting from a governance perspective. So this particular report, and there are lots of reports which are possible through technology, where you are identifying the weak students. As you can see out here, these are basically your fast learners, normal learners, and slow learners. All the definition of fast, slow is also customizable to a college. So if you are a rural college, your definition could be lower for a fast learner or something. You can define that. If you are in an urban setup, maybe you have a higher benchmark for defining. So all that can be done, and the software will identify the weak learners. Not only will it identify weak learners, it will identify what topics are they weak in. So if you are doing any kind of a remedial class, you will basically be very clearly do it with a more data driven decision of I am conducting this remedial class in this topic because I know you are weak and my data is showing you that you are weak. So these are all how technology can really complement a good teaching learning processes, which a university like MGM, which is already good at, can now get a lot of analysis done, so that the it is directed towards proper topics and proper students who deserve this. So this is a very classical example of how weak students can be identified, and because again the CBME document talks about how you can how you need to identify weak students and give them feedback, which is there. I will now go very quickly over the blueprinting automation software which we have, the technology. What it does is, I will quickly, don't go through this whole thing. I will quickly explain it to you. So a controller of examination can log in. He can choose the subject and create an examination date. He can input the blueprint attributes. The blueprint attributes are nothing but, the distribution of question types. I want 20% MCQ, 10% long answer, 20% short answer. You can put those inputs out there. And then basically there could be also a subject matter expert who could come in and say, I want these competencies to be covered. I want these topics distribution, 10% from these topics. So both the controller of examination as well as the subject matter expert can jointly create a blueprint. Once the blueprint is created, you can apply that blueprint to the software, and there is an algorithm which will generate a particular template. My software can have a nice question bank which is there, which can either be imported by you, or you can be authored, or you can purchase some question banks from outside and put it into my system. Once it does that, my question paper can be automatically generated, which is there. And in case my software will also tell you that this question bank is not healthy, you don't have enough questions to generate the question paper, then you can create your own question, add more and more questions. So when you are adding more and more questions, it will prompt you exactly what are the type of questions you have to add into the software to make it healthy. So that's how it is done. So this is an example of how you can distribute your LAQ SAQs in percentage wise. This can basically then you can say, I want to apply this to all the subjects. Okay, I'm a controller of examination for summative assessment. This pattern is same for every subject. So you can say that, including things like, if you look at on the left side, you will get question type, difficulty level. So you can say, I want 30% difficult, 60% easy, and 10% medium. All those things you can say. Total marks should not be more than this, number of questions should be not more than this, duration. All these things can be set up, and then you can say, I am applying this to all the questions subjects, and then you will get like a overall pie chart to explain to you what is your question type of distribution. You can then add things like your KSA formats into the blueprinting. You can say, I want these competencies which are there. Moment you choose a competency like this, your KH will be automatically defined, because there is a direct linkage between a competency and domain and level of competency, because your CBME document is already told us. So the software will already understand that your community medicine 3.6 is of KH and it is core. Okay, and you tick this saying, I want this in the question paper. So you can tick like this, and then you can generate a template. So template is nothing but the question paper minus the questions. So once you see the template and you say, yes, this looks fine, sometimes you might want to modify the template. For example, the GMER talks about that your MCQ should not exceed more than 20%. And in some examinations, it says at least one question should be from ATCOM. So you want to, over and above the software generated template, you want to add one more question saying it should be ATCOM. You can add that. And once you add that, my software will go to the question bank and tell you whether it is healthy or not healthy. This is an example I've shown saying that it is not healthy, and it is telling you you need to add 3 more questions of this question type to make it healthy. So you can immediately add it through a workflow process. Anyone cannot add it. So author will add it, then the approver will approve it, he can reject it, and then finally the reviewer will, the final person will take a decision. So it's a 3-level process before it goes into the question bank saying this is a proper question which is there. Once that is there, the question paper is generated and you will have also analytics, okay, which is again a very good thing to show to regulatory authorities that all my assessments are covering as per GMER. So these are my analytics of the question paper, and you can generate a PDF document in a highly secure manner. So you want it from a controller of examination department only, that login will be provided only there. Anyone tinkers, we have very good security features and audit trails to explain to you if anyone has done any changes on this thing. So that is how the question paper gets generated, which is there. This more or less has completed my part of the CABME presentation. Because of little bit of lack of time, maybe I've gone a bit fast, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy. The next part of the presentation would be on NAC. So I would hand it over to back to the moderator of this webinar, Dr. Bhavna, to then take this forward. So thank you very much for paying attention. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, sir, for giving such a wonderful explanation on the detailed use of technology in CBME implementation, right from LMS assessment to skill certification and even generating a blueprint and question paper. So thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. R.S. Inamdar, sir, once again to give outline of NAC. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. This was the first unit of CBME, competency-based medical education, which is rolled out rather in 600 medical colleges. And now there is another area with which colleges, medical colleges, universities are concerned with, though it is not being taken up by all of the colleges at present, but sooner or later it is going to come. That is NAC. When the college starts with, when the faculty is asked, the first of their reaction is the long form. What is the long form of NAC? That is how we start learning about it. Like we had gone into details in MGMIHS, we had 2 cycles. We are at the end of the second accreditation cycle. We are A grade university. And in our university, it is like a big wedding in the family. जसं ते इंग्लिश पिक्चर मध्ये श्रीदेवी असते आणि गौराई माझी लाडाची जसं धूम चालू असते, तसं everybody starts talking about NAC. The people who are asking the long form of NAC, now if in the sleep also they talk about NAC and NAC. So that kind of a change in the environment is there when you undergo for NAC. And NAC is for the overall development of the institute. NAC is looking at the quality. NAC is looking at the various criteria. So it is a National Assessment and Accreditation Council. When we look at the colleges in the West who are securing a very good standing, and we talk why our colleges, why our universities are not in the first 100, not in the second 100. So government has thought about various ways by which one should assess, one should accredit, one should ascertain that there is development, there is progress. So that is the basic purpose of this one. NAC was established in 1994 as an autonomous institute of UGC and with the headquarters at Bangalore. And in the vision of the NAC, so the focus is on quality, 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 and quality. Quality is the defining element of higher education in India through a combination of the self and external quality evaluation, promotion, and sustenance initiatives. In the mission of NAC mission statements, there would be various mechanisms by which the academic environment and the quality in teaching learning and the research would be stimulated. They will also encourage the self-evaluation. You have to look at yourself, right? Where I was and where I'm going to be. You have to be accountable. There should be autonomy is given to the institutes, and they are expected to come forward with innovations. They are also expected to undertake the quality related research studies, do the consultancy, do the training. And previously, we were in isolated one, like a scientist working in his lab. Now he has to collaborate, not only with others, but other institutes, not only in India, but across the globe. So the collaboration with other stakeholders and the institutes, it is imperative for quality evaluation, promotion, sustenance. The NAC looks at the graduates, the postgraduates, with 5 core values and for the institutes. One, go for the national development. You have to contribute to the national development. Foster the competencies which are at the global level, global competencies. At the same time, you have to inculcate the value system. Like in MGMIHS, we have a Gandhian value system. On every wall, there would be a Gandhian thought, and in every lecture, there would be a Gandhian thought. So the value system has to be inculcated in the students, in the faculty, in the institute. And technology, there is no option. We are now communicating so seamlessly through technology. You are sitting at your place, in your department, in your homes, in front of a laptop, and we are interacting. And quest for excellence is a no stoppage. These are the core values of the NAC. Now, NAC will assess the institutes in 7 different criteria. 7 is a very interesting number. Sat. So NAC has also taken that number 7. And there are criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 7, right? So number 1 criteria, not as a number 1 in the hierarchy or something, but the first criteria is curriculum. I mean, we start discussing what is the curriculum, what is the syllabus, how it is different, but it has gone far beyond. I mean, there is a book by Kern, 6 steps of curriculum designing. So our faculty should be conversant with how the curriculum is designed. And so NAC splits into these 4 sub criteria: curriculum design and development, academic flexibility, how you can move from one course to another, curricular enrichment, it is not only the subject, but what additional soft skills, the global skills, 21st century skills that you impart to your students. And there is a robust feedback system from all the stakeholders that you know what and where we are going to. Criteria number 2 deals with student enrollment, admissions, diversity, teaching learning process. Now it is a learner centric. Teachers profile and the quality and upgradation of the quality of the teachers. What qualifications, what additional courses they are taking. Evaluation assessment process. What are the reforms which are happening in the evaluation? You're tracking the students' performance and the learning outcomes. So there is emphasis on the outcomes. Now, previously, there was emphasis on the process. How many teachers are there? How many lectures are conducted? What is the percentage attendance of the students? No. Now the focus has shifted to outcome. Look at the product. Like in a factory of a Toyota or some other Maruti, you look at the product. So similarly, our product, a graduate of MBBS graduate, look whether he has all the outcomes and the competencies. These are being tracked. We also take a student satisfaction survey on various points. Criteria 3 is an important criteria. It has more weightage. It is about research. Now, research everywhere, the institutes are ranked and put on a pedestal on the basis of the research publications, the quality of the publications, the impact factor, H index, and other bibliometrics. So the research publication and what the institute does for promoting the research, what the institute does for mobilizing the funds, for providing an innovation ecosystem, what kind of a consultancy it has, and what are the various extension activities and collaborations, all would be charted under this criteria of research. Criteria number 4 is about the infrastructure. Normally, the regulatory bodies will only look at the lecture halls and the laboratories and their dimensions. But now it has gone beyond. Of course, physical facilities are required. Learning resources are required. Library is seen as how much is the footfall, how many students are visiting the libraries and using it. IT infrastructure has come in a big way. And the campus maintenance, the green campus, the conservation policies, the eco-friendliness is also seen. Student support services. I mean, in the medical institutions, there are 2 focuses. 1, student. 2nd, patient. In educational institute, in the medical college, there is a focus on the student. So what are the various support systems, services that we are providing, the institute is providing, that the NAC will look into, how the students would be progressing, how they are participating in various activities, not only academic, co-curricular, extracurricular, and in the society, they are participating and developing their own personality and contributing to the well-being of the things around. Alumni engagement. Criteria 7 has faculty empowerment, financial management, IQACs, and institutional vision and mission. These things will come in. And in criteria number 7, it is the institutional values, the social responsibilities, like we have a Gandhian values at the core, the best practices which are being taken up by various departments and the institutes, and how the institutional distinctness, how it is distinct, different in its area, what exemplary work it is carrying out. That is seen. That is at the heart of the criteria number 7. There are quality indicators. The matrix is there where different criteria have different indicators, and they are seen in a great many details with all the supporting documents and activities and geotags photos and are required that you have actually done it. It is being seen as impact in the field. So for the colleges and science, this universities, there are 7 criteria. There are various indicators. There is a write-up which is to be given, and there are measurements, and there is a verification by various agencies, and then you are assessed and you are given a criteria whether you are in a grade, A plus grade, A plus plus, if you are hitting the ceiling, where if you would be there, or you are still to improve, B or so, because these grades will decide your position in the academics, in the research, in the society, and the students and parents will look at the institute. Look, that institute is A grade, right? So let's put our child there. So with this, NAC is bringing in a lot of change in the quality, improvement in the quality, competition between the institutes. It is laying down the various criteria, and it's very meticulously, the exercise has been done, is being done. And our institute is going for the 2nd cycle, I mean in a month and 2. And just as I said in the beginning, it's like a wedding. घर में बड़ी शादी है, धाम-धूम से मेहमान आ गए हैं, कोई इधर देख रहा है भाई उसको चाय मिली कि नहीं, ये मिली कि नहीं, और ये हुआ कि नहीं. So that kind of a very vibrant atmosphere is there in the institutes. So I think more and more institutes should go for NAC accreditation, and you will find the effect, you will find the change, right? So with this, I stop and hand over to Bhavana.
Thank you, sir, for the overview of NAC. And now I call upon our next EdTech expert, Mr. Ajay Bhagwat. Sir is Director of INPOTS India. He is an education technology expert for academic quality assurance, CBME, and has trained teachers in outcome-based education, online teaching learning assessment, and accreditation. He will be speaking on NAC accreditation. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhavna, Dr. Ravindra Inanda. Thank you for inviting. Thank you, Dr. Ravindra, for setting up a nice pitch for this presentation. And then I can directly start with how a technology platform can potentially solve the problems that are typically faced by those involved in data collection and collation. What happens typically is that in the absence of a system to collect the data systematically and it's all the time, it's like painting a bridge. NAC requires you to collect the data for a 5-yearly cycle and then followed by yearly cycles, which is called as annual quality assurance reports. The number of metrics involved in each of these cycles almost remain the same, and the efforts to be taken by the faculty members remains the same. What happens is that over a period of time, data continues to change, continues to shape, and that poses a problem for data collection process, because one has to continuously update the data, and it should not be a burden for those who are updating the data. There has to be, you may use some alternative ways of collecting the data for those 125 metrics and that each and every department has to participate in data collection. So it's like, if a medical college has 21 departments and some other couple of non-teaching departments, then it has to be like 125 multiplied by those many departments. And those are the number of metrics, theoretically, and the data has to flow from those many metrics towards the team that is supposed to collect the data, look at it, inspect it, and generate a report out of it. And that's the challenge that the team faces. And this data has to be continuously updated. So our attempt was to design a system not only to streamline data collection, bring in the discipline in the way the data is collected. It's not only that, but we also wanted to give an environment in which you will be able to self-assess the quality of the data that is being collected. And that also should be happening regularly, so that it should help you in identify the hotspots in the system, and if you want to see some kind of trends, that is very easy. It should be very easy for you to actually spot those problems and then address those issues, obviously. And then if you want to also see whether certain grades have to be achieved by all the departments in certain areas. Let's say you consider top 25 metrics, which are extremely important and vital for you to achieve higher grades, higher recognition. Then, for example, 3.3.3, which belongs to number of research papers submitted by each teacher. And if that is a measure that you want to consider as one of the key indicator of quality, then you want to monitor, you want to keep an eye on 3.3.3 all the time, and you don't want that metric grade to fall down, let's say below 2. 2 is a representation of it is a way to interpret the level at which the metric is. So the scale used is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's say you don't want the departments to score below 2, you can set the target accordingly. You should be able to, and then you should be able to identify the hotspots. That's the kind of idea we were having in the mind when we designed this system. And when it comes to self-assessment, it should help you roll up the data from all the departments and then show the departments themselves to visualize how they are progressing, as well as the entire university how they are progressing. So that was the challenge that we had, and obviously we had deeper discussions with our customers, our some of the senior educators in the country, and some of the advisors that we are blessed with to have them on our board. And they also have continuously given us the feedback about how it will work in health sciences universities and medical colleges and other fields of education in health sciences. And that helped us develop a very robust platform to kind of help you with addressing these challenges. So if you would imagine how the data should get collected in a university such as yours, you would imagine that IQAC is at the supreme level. They should be having access and privileges and permissions, to go anywhere in the system. And followed by them, there has to be a layer which could be called as a parent level for data get data to be collated. And below them, there would be departments, right? And also you need to address, you need to make use of the faculty members, the criteria-wise committees, such a way that they play a very vital, important role in the review process of the data and improve the quality in general. So that's the typical nature of I would say it's a typical hierarchical structure that you would find and you would expect to have when it comes to collection of the data. So at the department level, so if this was your MBBS school, then you would have multiple departments under the MBBS school, and each department is supposed to collect the data for 125 metrics, out of which 81 are quantitative metrics and remaining are qualitatives. And the data for quantitative metric has to be uploaded to DBB, as you must be already aware of. So the data has to be collected by departments, and when it is sent to the schools, respective schools, it should get collated at that level, because all similar metric data has to be collected there. And I'm sure that you must be doing this manually right now, right? And that has to be automated. Now, when the same thing will happen in other departments, and then there is another mega collation of the data that has to happen at the IQAC level, right? Then in that case, it is going to be the data aggregation, data collation, which is coming from all the schools in the university. And this is the process of this is the ideal process of collection of the data. Let me know in case you are following something different and more useful, more fundamentally effective. Then we would like to also learn from you how it should be done as another example of collecting the data effectively. So here in this case, the departmental teams, such as authors and approvers, are going to play the primary role of collecting the data and also approving it, reviewing it, and approving it. So authors would send the data to approvers related to their respective metrics. And then once the approver approves it, the approver may reject also, it goes back. But it can be approved and then it goes to the author at the next level. So this next level is the school. So let's say MBBS, and MBBS has an author there corresponding who is handling the data reaching him or her, which is sent by each department under the school. And this author has to then formulate a response of the school, because departments have taken care of their responses. The next level author has to once again look at the merged data and then formulate an answer response, send it to the approver. And again, this approver has to either accept or reject based on the progression, the data has to once again go to the author at IQAC level, because at the author at IQAC level, aggregation of the data has to happen when it is sent by each school under the university. So it's a super aggregation, and that's why once again it has to be reviewed by somebody. I'm pretty sure that you must be already doing this. And then once again, somebody has to take a look at it, and then the data becomes final. That's the process I would imagine must be there when you want to streamline the data collection and improve the quality of the data being collected. You also require, because we don't have luxury of, too many people doing this work. So naturally, there will be people who will be wearing multiple caps. Somebody would be playing author and approver role within the same department. And somebody may be playing the role of author in some school, approver in another school, or in the, vertically or horizontally, they may be able to go to any department, play any role. Likewise, they should be able to go to any school and play any role as per the desire. You may want to, flexibly configure the user's roles and the responsibility based on what the reality is at your level. So once this kind of framework is established there, you can easily start collecting the data in this fashion. So I've already explained the idea behind how this is going to work. So I don't have to re-explain this here. I can just quickly fast forward the things. These dashboards are going to show you the progression of the data being collected and the quality of the data being collected. And this is done, and this is one of the most important aspects of the technology, which are helping the current users of this technology platform, and that they have communicated as that these dashboards are helping them streamline their IQAC meetings very effectively. And the next important aspect that is required to be looked at in the technology configuration is how you want the responsibility of data collection to be given to the next level. So it's basically delegation of the responsibility. So some of the metrics the IQAC team may want to keep with themselves because they belong to their activities, per se. For example, 6.5.2. So they will keep it with them, and remaining set of metrics will be given to the next level. And even the schools can think about retaining something with them, because it may be very sensitive information that is to be handled, which is not known to the departments, something like that, which the schools can retain with them, and rest of the metrics could be given to this department. So this is the way the structure, the configuration of the delegation of the responsibility can be done, and then the data collection action begins. So for that, I will have to take an example of a metric and then drive this discussion further. So this is 2.3.4 is I'm going to consider as an example to show you how data would get collected in the departments, how it rolls up, and then how it makes sense to you when it comes to quality, measuring the quality of the data. This is quantitative metric. Quantitative metric 2.3.4 is to do with mentor-mentee ratio, and it has to be reported by the departments along with the supporting documents which are mentioned here. And there is a data sheet also suggested by NAAC in their manual that one of the data sheets, the data has to be captured in, as defined in their formats, and has to be then collated by the departments, schools, and then IQAC teams. And this whole data sheet, the collated data sheet, has to be uploaded into the data verification and validation platform, which is called as DVV of NAAC. And this exactly the same sheet has to be uploaded there. So naturally, we consider that the same format for data collection at the source level. And then if the department starts collecting the data, the respective authors in these all the departments, I'm just giving example of 3 departments, And then the data, quality of the data will get measured as soon as it is approved by the respective authors, approvers here. And the way the computation happens, I'll come to that a little later. But now imagine that the data sheets which were inputted by all the three authors would get automatically collated at the school level. The manual work is absolutely eliminated there. And the supporting documents will be given, presented to the respective author there. Recall the flow of data as it goes upwards, right? Once the departments would send it to the schools, it has to be first of all looked at by an author. And this author has to pick and choose the right set of documents, merge as many as possible, and create school's response for the reviewer to take a look at. And then that's what happens. And then once the approver is okay with the quality of the data at the college level, it will go to the IQAC team. And likewise, the data supporting documents also will reach the IQAC team. Now, recall the next step here in IQAC. They also have to generate a response of the IQAC office and then get it reviewed. But before that, the other schools in the university have to collect their data as well and send it across to IQAC team. So this is how the the data collection will be streamlined and through these system configuration. And now I will come to the computation of the grade and weighted grade points. So it's not something that's a very complex problem to solve. However, some wisdom and some common sense is required. So we looked at the NAC manual. We looked at the the way they have they define the formulae. We discussed it with some of the experienced NAC assessors, the experts in this field, and then we used our common sense. We are engineers, so naturally we also could think about something that has to be added in this. And then this computation, as soon as the data sheet is submitted, it computes the grade points and weighted grade points, and accordingly the hotspots can be identified very easily. That's the idea here, and I'll show you how to set the scale, how to set the targets for specific metrics, and then that will probably simplify this discussion of how to compute the grade points and weighted grade points. Now there is a disclaimer. The disclaimer is as this. We don't want to compute with the DVB's way of grading and the institutions. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to give you your own way, your own framework of computation of the grade points and weighted grade points. Other benefit and the purpose is to identify the strength and the weaknesses of some certain, for all the metrics that you are trying to monitor, and the users at department level, at the school level, and at the IQAC level, they all are going to be aware of how this collection is progressing. The other advantage of this grading system that is developed by us is that that out of 125 metrics, and there are certain metrics which are not reaching its desired stage, because there is nothing can be done further, because that's it. If you have not submitted rather published more research papers until that particular point in time, nothing else can be done. That's the level it has retained, and that's it. Probably next year, next cycle, it may get improved, but that's the way the system is going to show you the true picture of what the current state is. Second benefit of this grading is that once you know that there are certain weaknesses here, you can show this to the respective somebody who is going to help you with some advisory inputs. And this, since you know from the system that these are the areas which may have to be then immediately given to the person who is helping you with this inputs, that person can log into the system and can take a look at the data collected and provide you the feedback. And this can happen from anywhere, right? And that's another benefit of establishing an environment like this. So if this person who is helping you with external kind of inputs, audit, mock audit, or this person can reject it like this, can log in and reject it, and then this data will go back to the respective departments for the resubmission corrections. I hope that was helpful. Just let me go back a little bit. Yeah. So when the department starts collecting the data, they will have to, we use Cricketer's name for our environment, demo environment. So here, Chahal is going to, is there any message for me? Dr. Inamdar, I hope that time-wise we're doing good, but I'll anyway quickly now move forward. So the departments will configure who should be the author, who should be the approver, and then for when the author signs in, he or she would be able to see the reflection of the NAC manual on the UI of the system itself. So there is a complete clarity about what has to be done here by each and every person participating in this process. And we give you the data sheet, and the author can submit it for the review. Then the approval comes in picture. Then this is the dashboard that is given to the approvers to see the progress. There are notifications sent to the users. So system communicates the users about the progression of the data. So approver would may want to reject it, and before rejection, suggestions or some kind of communication can happen between the approver and the author, and the rejection can be done. So this is the way the data will go back to the author. The author can then resubmit it and address the comments there, and then submit it back. So in this time, the data will be approved, and now it's gone up. So this is how the data has been, I mean, the author and the reviewer have worked together to complete the task. The other departments simultaneously are collecting the data for the same metric, maybe, and then at the next level, you would get merged data automatically. That's the idea here. As far as the qualitative metrics are concerned, you have a text box here, and then you can also add supporting documents. In some of the health sciences institutions, you have, it's not applicable for health science universities, but for affiliated colleges, there is a 8th criteria applicable to them, because it changes whether it's a medical, dental, Unani or Ayurved college, and then based on that, this system can be configured easily. Dashboards, which is the Atma of this system, gives you very well this is the kind of input given to all the stakeholders playing roles here as either approver or reviewer, and also even the authors also can see this dashboard to see their overall progress. This is the university level dashboard. So IQAC team can see the overall progress, and they can drill down to any department to see what's wrong there or what's good there. And they can filter the statuses. They can filter the metrics to reach out to what the progress is. And then the grade point and weighted grade point computation is rolled up, and it's presented to the IQAC team as an overall estimation of the grade points, criteria-wise grade points here. You can see these are the quantitative metrics, these are the qualitative metrics related computations. and this is criteria-wise grade point average. So this is very nicely presented to the all the schools, departments, and IQAC team, and they can easily find out the progress of data collection in this manner. So this is the way you can set the grade for 2.3.4. You can create a kind of benchmark like this, that if the departments score between 0 and 5, it will be considered 0.6, and above till 12 it is 1 point. So I think in this particular exercise, when I was creating these screenshots for the demonstration, I found that this particular school scored 1 in this. So it means that their grade point average was, rather their computation, the ratio of mentor-mentee was somewhere between 6 and 12. So that's why system gave them 1. This is the other non-QF data that has to be collected. And then these fields are visible to the IQAC team because these fields are to be, kind of owned by them. It's their responsibility. And once the approval at all the levels happens, data would finally reach to this level. This is, you can see this is called as NAC SSR. And this is exactly the way you would want your data to be presented to you, right? And we have, when we were talking about somebody who served as a backend team of DBV in the past, this person was telling us that, they have seen many mistakes done by the users of mismatching data being uploaded, incorrect data being uploaded, and mismatching in the sense the data of one metric has been uploaded to this other metric, the supporting documents. And that is typically human error. We eliminate that completely because those who are given the authority, responsibility of uploading the data from your institution to DBV, all they have to do is log in here and go to one by one these metrics, look at the finalized data, just input these 2 numbers in DBV, download this template, upload there, download the supporting documents from here, upload there, because these are the final responses collected by you. You really don't have anywhere to go to look for the data, right? And that will cause all sorts of confusion. Instead of that, come here, download the data, upload it, period. This is the external reviewer account which you can create and allow the access. Now, the most important aspect of our technology, which you will not find anywhere else, is faculty common data capturing. So all the members of the university are given access to the system to keep updating their data, which is relevant for accreditations and rankings. So you would come here and update, let's say you want to update some basic details. So you go here, download the template of the data that we want you to upload. And then it is uploaded along with the supporting documents, submitted for your department head to review it, and then it is evaluated. So once the data is collected by the, periodically for your awards and recognitions, your patents, your publications, you can look at the kind of, data that has to go in all the time in, research projects and consultancy, and some kind of, master data also requires to be changed, because if somebody has achieved higher, some additional certification courses are done, and if you want to add those here, that data has to continuously come in. And then this data is automatically presented to those who are participating in the accreditation process. Somebody who is the owner of 2.4.1 wants this data to be inputted here, and the source of the data has to be updated, current, and that's the reason we give you the inputs here directly. And this data comes from the data that has been updated by the faculty members periodically whenever there were any changes, whenever there were any publications, research papers presented, and the data will keep coming here. And when this person goes for responding to this metric, she will require updated data, which we will give here, and then you can easily then formulate your response, which will be most accurate response that you can form at that point in time and present it to the next level of submission. So that's it from my end, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time and patiently hearing my presentation. These are the key benefits of INPARTS.
Thank you, sir. It was a very beautiful lecture. This technology is definitely going to simplify life of all those parties involved, right from the departments to institutes to IQAC and NAC committees of those institutes. So thank you, sir.
There is one question regarding whether there are any studies comparing the CBME with the traditional one. Yeah, in the West, there are studies comparing the CBME. Also, interestable professional activities. In US, Dr. Vinay Kumar, who is a pioneer in pathology, who has contributed with the NK cells and who is related with this pathology textbook. He had a webinar last month. He said that they have introduced a system on the similar lines, and they have studied for 5 years, and the outcomes and the deviation curves have been there, and they are very substantial, positive new method of teaching based on the outcomes or competencies.
There was one question as to how many users can be using this student app. I think that was for Kalidas, sir. At a time, how many users can use the app? I think that was the question.
So, ma'am, technically there is no limitation
Yeah.
in terms of how many users can use the app. We are the whole backend server is on the cloud. We use Amazon Cloud Server. So as the load increases, automatically more and more servers get deployed. So technically there is no limitation.
Thank you, sir. I don't think there are any more questions.
So thank you so much, all the participants, all the dignitaries, guests. It's a great pleasure hosting a webinar and interacting with you. Now to Bhavana for a vote of thanks.
Definitely, we all had a wonderful program today, orienting us to learn the newer ways, technologies. Sudhir Kadam sir, Honorable Vice Chairman of MGM Trust, Dr. P.M. Jadhav sir, respected Dean, MGM Medical College, Navi Mumbai, Dr. G.S. Narshetty sir, respected Dean of MGM Medical College, Aurangabad, Dr. R.B. Bohra sir, respected Registrar of MGM IHS, Dr. Rajesh Goel sir, respected Deputy Registrar of MGM IHS, Dr. Rajesh Kadam sir, all of them for encouraging us. Our thanks to Mr. Anil Khandare and IT team of academic section of our university. We are very much thankful to all of you, of course, the participants, the faculty members, students, for your enthusiastic participation. Thank you one and all. Goodbye. Stay happy and stay healthy.